fish are friends, not food.
I'm a little worried about Rob.
Yes, it's happening.
Ever since we tried to summon Cthulhu, he hasn't been the same.
I'm growing gills. My transformation into a deep one has finally begun.
Rob, we don't see any gills.
It's these kids getting involved with all this stuff causes them to go crazy.
I think I feel the webbing starting to grow between my fingers.
Welcome to Dinner and a Board Game, a new actual play show about friends, good food, and lots of fun at the gaming table. We're your hosts, Megan and Heath. Each night, I'll invite the gaming group over to my house to cook dinner, sample drinks, and play a board game on one of our customized board game boards. Dinner and a Board Game is an actual play show where you'll be able to watch the game from start to finish, with gameplay dashboards and graphics that help track the turns and allow everyone to follow the game's action. We'll play games like Zombicide, Black Plague, Descent, Journeys in the Dark, Small World, Unearth, and Terraforming Mars. We'll even be joined by special guests such as Lou Anders, J.F. Lewis, and cosmic horror artist David LaRocca. The show is free to watch on YouTube. Just come by my channel, Heath Robinson, and be sure to subscribe. Click Watch Now to start the first episode and join us for fun-filled evenings of dinner and a board game. And now it's time for Table Talk, where we'll be talking about the creative and business side of making things in the tabletop and fantasy genre. Let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to what is now this 11th episode of Table Talk. And so we've been doing this for about a month and a half now. And, I need to update my intro because it's developed into so much more than just tabletop games. We're talking about the business and creative side of basically trying to make anything happen that you want to happen, regardless of media, whether that is in tabletop games, movies, TV, comic books, graphic novels, video games. That's one I don't know a whole lot about, but we could talk about that. How do we make those creative things happen from the creative and business side of things? And I'm extremely happy to have tonight an extremely special guest. It is Paul Chato from the Call Me Chato channel. And you may know him probably best for his series on the channel about former network executive reacts, where he has been putting out sometimes very blistering commentary on today's studio, mainstream studio produced TV, movies, entertainment in general like that. And he has a lot to say, and I'm very interested in having this conversation with him tonight. Welcome, Paul. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I certainly have blistered a few things. Not you never know. You make this stuff and then you put it out and people react.
Yeah, well, and you recently went viral like last week or something like that.
Well, I've gone viral a few times. It's been an interesting journey since February, where I launched former network executive reacts or responds or whatever. I can't remember, responds. And that was to a lot of the initial Lord of the Rings craziness and just asking as a former network person, pretty astonished at the level of vitriol returned to the fans by the studios themselves. In the past, they would just shut up. Like, I didn't understand what the need was to go attack the fans. But what's happened is that it's just not stopped. None of the studios are listening to my videos.
Apparently not, right?
And I don't understand. I do not get the upside. Like, I don't understand it unless they're living off of Twitter and just feeling that if they make the Twitterate that's on their side happy, then they're fine. But I don't think it's ever a good strategy. It makes no sense. And then now we have actors on multiple from multiple shows talking not about their shows, but just about how they're, now they're finally representing on shows and what great diversity we have. And no one talks about their shows anymore. And so To me, maybe it's just me being an old dude. I don't see the benefit of not hyping things. On the other hand, one of the things I found is that maybe the Carson era was the last era where people really knew how to hype things well, and things were scripted, and Carson would throw to the guest questions where they would have a prepared story that would then promote their latest thing. It was all done. I mean, if you think the shows themselves that they worked on were finely crafted, the Carson show was finely crafted. Very few people ad-libbed, maybe Buddy Hackett. But everyone else knew what needed to be done, and Carson knew what lines he had to say to unlock those answers from the stars. And the stars always had prepared stories. They weren't like now everyone, if they go on some kind of talk show or something, they're just extemporizing.
Let's just wing it. Yeah.
They just wing it. And it's like, wretched, unless you're a very talented, individual, Michael Keaton or someone, but everyone else, it's so we've lost the professionalism of the shows, and we've lost the professionalism of promoting the shows. So anyways, that's another topic, or maybe that's something you want to talk about too.
Well, we can talk about that. Hey, Polly just showed up. You know Polly from
Polly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Polly's here. Thank you, Polly. Hi. Okay, well, first
I
of all,
love Polly.
Yeah, I know. I watched the Latino slant quite a bit. And he was on General Geekdom a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so before we actually get into a bunch of different things, will you please provide a little bit of an introduction and background to yourself, as specifically as far as the network executive goes? Because you've got former network executive reacts, but I don't know, even after following your channel, exactly what your position was, what your responsibility was, and what you did. Because I've got CBC in charge of comedy.
Yeah, so I don't want to overblow. People have attacked me already. Man, you're just on CBC, Canadian Broadcaster. That's not really much of an executive. So, yeah, that could very well be the case. I am not admitting to 30 years worth of Hollywood backroom dealing. So, I was part of a comedy group called The Frantics, which became very, very well known in Canada. Our radio show, we did 120 of them, and we were 500,000 plus people were listening to us every single week. So that was higher than many Canadian TV shows. And we toured Canada, played to hundreds of thousands of people. We had a fantastic time. Now, out of that, I became head of TV comedy at CBC for 3 years, and part of the mandate that my boss allowed me to have was, I came up with the notion of bringing back expatriate Canadians from LA to teach us how to do sitcoms in Canada, which we did very, very badly, both from a technical perspective, because I'm a geek. There was just always something off about the look of Canadian sitcoms. So I was interested in how that was done. I was interested in the writing process and how it was done in the United States, and also, talk with expatriate Canadians. And I brought a lot of them back. I mean, Burt Metcalf was the director of, a third of MASH's. I got to speak with Stan Daniels. I mean, I got to speak with a phenomenal bunch of expats just to bring back that knowledge to Canada. So I spent a lot of time in LA, and I spent a lot of time in boardrooms, and I got invited to all sorts of things. So the normal arc of a Canadian executive is to stay in Canada, but that's not what I did. And so, I think I learned more in a very short amount of time, just because I was dedicated to learning, not just waiting for it to happen. Executive produced 4 sitcoms. One was successful, but got canceled because the critics hated it. One we didn't air it at all because the test was very bad. 2 other shows got aired and lasted. One lasted 1 season, one lasted 2 seasons. Just a ton of experience from that. And then I went to LA when I quit. There was a massive layoff, then helped executive produce a Newfoundland comedy show, then went to LA and got interviewed for a position with Paramount, a VP of development at Paramount. And it was pretty much a done deal. And then incident happened at the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And I'll tell you, want the story?
Sure.
So I'm sitting with another Canadian expat who spent the time at dinner complaining how NBC wouldn't take any of his calls, even though he had created several multi-million-dollar shows for NBC. And that's one of the things that you learned in LA is that the one thing most people have in common is failure. So you can have 1 out of 10 successes, but 9 out of those attempts are failures. So the thing you have in common is failure. So you talk about
Almost
failure.
nothing works. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a fail, and there's a million reasons for things to fail. And so he was complaining that he made NBC so much money and they're not returning his calls. And then I was close to the door and Cher came in. She startled me, one, because he was Cher and just because of the angle I was at or whatever. And for reasons I don't know, I blurted out, I went, "Hi, Cher," maybe a bit too loudly, maybe a bit too familiar a way. And I could see on her face, do I know this asshole? And so rather than embarrassing herself that maybe she should know me and doesn't want to show it, and she went, "Hi," really friendly. And she just put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Maybe we can talk later." And then she bugged off to her table. So suddenly she transferred to me in a temporary way her aura. I borrowed her aura. Everybody in the Polo Lounge was now looking at me. And they're going, "What can I get from this guy?" And people would come by, would give me their cards, call me, whatever. And it rubbed me so badly. And of course, the movie The Player was on. I watched it not that, maybe a couple of years earlier. It's a great movie, The Player. And if you've ever seen it, just absolutely fantastic. I recommend The Player. And I went back to my room at the Beverly Hills, and I went, "Wow, I'm turning into The Player." And I realized I just really didn't have a temperament for this. And because I also could program, I went, "You know what? I think I'm going to dump all this and do my programmer thing." And I was supposed to be down, had another few meetings with Paramount booked, and I just called Air Canada and said, "I want to leave now. Give me the red eye. 11:30. I'm on the plane." And I changed my booking, got on the plane, never went back. And then I started a new media company called the Digital Soup Company in 91. And then I've sort of been doing that business ever since, built it into a multi-million-dollar multinational business.
Oh, well, that's success.
So, I mean, I had success as a comedian. I had success as a network executive. I wrote for Spitting Image in the UK. And so, I mean, I had, I was happy. I was satisfied. And I kind of realized I didn't want to let LA rape me. So I went back home. My wife was surprised, and I said, I'm starting a new media company. I'm going to change the world, desktop publishing, and anyway, it doesn't matter. So no, I did really, really well with that, and made lots of money. And then I did a video game, which sold a crap ton. One of the most popular video games of that year, which was called Jewels of the Oracle. The only problem, it made millions of dollars. The problem was we didn't get any of our royalties. The publishing company went under, and we were owed a ton of money. So you could still say I'm a successful video game. Do I have a copy of it somewhere? Video game publisher.
I was just saying, I don't know much about video games at all. So here we have extremely successful video game
I
developer
produced
and
that,
here, right? A producer.
yeah, so that did that, and then changed the business around from doing work for multinationals to a hosted web service where we charge $25 a month, and now we have so many clients that I don't have to work for a living. We just live off the residual income off the hosting of all our websites. So I learned business, comedy writing. It's funny being a comedian that learned how to do business, learned business, managed a ton of people and learned how to do that. I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm a very happy guy. I've done a lot of things, succeeded at them. Actually, to tell you the truth, the thing that probably I'm most proud of was when the video game failed, and we became the company that was waiting to be paid company, and we were like in debt $150,000 back in the mid 90s, which was a lot more than it is now. And I remember going into the pit where all the programmers and staff was. I said, you know what, we're going to stop being the waiting to be paid company. I'm just abandoning going after these assholes who didn't pay us, and we're going to become a website development company. This was in 99 and 98, 99. And the staff freaked out. They went, yeah, but they owe us like $1 million and stuff. And I went, nope, bye, gone. I don't care. Move on.
We're moving forward.
Forward. I can either spend my psychic energy worrying about the past, or I can use my skills as a positive person and build something new.
Well, I like that philosophy. Now, I haven't had any kind of success on the level you're talking about, but sometimes you have to pull that number if you're going to be creative and you're writing something. You're like, okay, listen, we've had mistakes in the past or things that happen or whatever, but we could spend a whole lot of time trying to fix that. But instead, we're going to build on what we got.
And the thing is, I was descending into a state of depression. Mm-hmm. And it was my wife in November of whatever that year was, bought me the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. And it just hit me in the weird way. And I just kept reading it and rereading it over and over. And it just changed me. Like at that moment, it just turned my positive jets back on, and my and then built up the company, landed Daimler as a global company and flying all over the world, JDS Uniphase and Oracle, Apple. So it was a neat run. So that I was actually most proud of, stopping the bad part and just changing direction and bringing everybody with me. And I was blessed that the people joined me on the journey. That's actually the better part of it, is that these people still trusted me enough to stick with me on this new journey.
I also understand that, the people you have with you.
So there you go. How's that?
That's fantastic. And it's incredibly inspirational. I mean, that's really inspirational, especially for, especially the audience here that I feel like I'm talking to between the different channels, creative people who are trying to build something of their own. And clearly you have done that.
Sorry. Go away.
So I first, well, no, it's not that I first became aware of you. I was aware of you before, but I first contacted you after you had posted several videos on your YouTube channel about the state of YouTube. Oh, we should say, I heard about your stuff through Dr. Demento.
That's my frantic stuff. That's we have a sketches called Boot to the Head.
And worked on Call of Duty 4. Big credits don't really help you much in my experience, he said.
Yeah.
But you had posted about the state of YouTube and basically independent production and creativity.
Yes.
And then I had seen those, and I reached out to you when I had seen those, because I've been producing web series and web shows here.
I've seen your
channel. Stuff. So I responded to several of your videos over here. I have a secondary channel because, YouTube doesn't like too much of the different content on the same kind of channel.
No, of course.
The channel for This channel probably has too much variety on it already. So
You are
I'm
dead
probably
to YouTube.
I'm as dead to YouTube. But on the other channel, I have a secondary channel called Heath's Business for Creatives.
Yep, I've seen it.
Which is where I do talk about the business side of things, at least as I have experienced it. And I don't. Oh, here I go. Oh, well, I was going to scroll down, but I don't even know where that uh, window is anymore on my computer. So anyway, if you scroll down though, like just a few clicks, there's a playlist where I say response to Paul Chato, and I got like 6 videos there. So you can go there and so watch Paul's videos first. But then I did mine.
Yeah, I've seen them, and your responses were very good. I thought you added some very good things to it.
Well, I wanted to. With what little experience I have, there were things that I wanted to add and say to that, and I hope that in the future they are useful to people who are trying to do the same kind of thing. Because I'm building that channel because I want to leave a path for people who are also trying to do.
I'm still
things.
interested in doing videos on how to do independent productions on YouTube, but right now I've caught a bit of wind in my sails, and I'm just going with it.
Yeah, absolutely understood. But so I don't want to retread that specific ground because people can go and watch your videos and then they can watch those responses there. But I do want to say, okay, but you really encouraged me to think differently about the way that I was doing things.
Good.
You had said, because I had been working on, how do you cobble all of this together as an independent person creating stories and then also all of the merchandise, in order to generate revenue from these stories and crowdfund them and then bring together distributors and the global shipping and all these things. And I had been putting out what I had been doing like on that YouTube channel from the business perspective so someone could follow. But what you were talking about was different from what the approach that I was taking, because I was definitely saying, okay, how can I get this done? And then try to cobble all of this together. And then if somebody wanted to follow, well, then here's how I cobbled it all together. Maybe you can do it too. But it seemed to me that your approach and that your critique was at a much more systematic level, at the level under someone who, like me, who was working that like the problem is some systematic flaws about how we're doing things with our platforms and our structures, such as YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube should be doing some very simple things, and they don't, they're not recognizing it, or maybe they've talked about it, and as a giant bureaucracy, they haven't implemented it yet.
So, I guess this is a general question, but then what do you think we need to do in order to fix ourselves structurally for independent film, TV? I mean, it could be web shows, to put out independent things like that. Well, because I'll say that, I come out of the tabletop side of things. So I come out of and it seems like the tabletop game industry has produced a very robust, independent infrastructure of independent publishers. We've got independent reviewers in a very several years, but I mean, in a relatively short amount of time, when all the tools became available, I would say that tabletop games produced an extremely robust, independent industry. Okay, that has not happened in web shows or independent film and that kind of thing.
And the problem is the problem is, and this is the weapon that Hollywood has inadvertently. It's not something they created purposefully. Is that tabletop, the barrier to entry is much lower than creating a hour-and-a-half good movie. So what are the barriers to creating a really, really good movie? In no particular order: production values, acting, writing, special effects. That's production values also. And you can just tell a cheap film. So yeah, maybe a Roger Corman or, what was that wonderful Israeli company that did schlocky movies for so long? Canon. So you could create a label, Canon Pictures, and they had a certain quality or lack thereof, and a certain style of the kinds of salacious movies that they did. Roger Corman, a lot of very famous directors got their chops doing really cheap movies with Roger Corman. Cameron, Opie, whatever. What's that guy's name? He did Apollo 13.
Yeah, he did Apollo 13. Yeah, and he was brought in on like the solo movie.
Yes, correct. And so Ron Howard. So
Ron Howard, yes.
So I'm sure he's watching this and really disappointed that I couldn't immediately remember his name, and the only way I could get to him was through Opie, but which was on Mayberry. That. And anyway, so that's really the biggest challenge, is that even if Hollywood puts out some absolute piece of shit like the Uncharted movies, the technical level is so high. The level of professionals that work on those really bad movies, the Eternals. And look at the actors that they assembled for the Eternals. It's a terrible movie, but it's kind of well acted for a bad movie, and it looked fabulous. We can't duplicate that on an independent production level. That's one of the biggest barriers to entry, because people expect a certain level of quality. So part of any kind of independent production to get it going is if we do find a way to create an independent production company, first of all, I think long form, like doing TV, is a better thing to do than trying to create movies, because it's easier to find okay actors that will do, let's say a sitcom or whatever, and you can do those relatively inexpensively. And if you do them enough, then you get better at it, and the audience will see that you get better at it. And one of the curious things about a long-term TV production is that if you can make it good enough as a pilot, it's kind of a promise to the audience that saw it. And if they see it improve technically and acting and writing wise with each version, it's like software. They will stick with you. If it gets worse, then the reverse happens. But trying to make like doing what the Daily Wire is doing, where they're trying to make a mini studio of non-woke movies. That's a lost cause.
Oh, you think it's a lost cause? I haven't been following all that closely. You think it's not going to work?
No, I think it's just too hard, because you're going to have failures, you're going to have successes, and Hollywood just puts out so much product that they know that if 2 out of 12 of their things makes a few $1 billion, then they've saved the year, as opposed to a company that has to have a hit rate of 2 out of 3 or something like that. But it's statistically impossible, because you just don't know what the audience will like. Anyway, and then, is an independent company going to get, an actor of the quality of Chris Pratt or somebody like that? And if they develop an actor of that quality, then they're going to be stolen away by Hollywood.
Right? Could you keep them?
No, you can't.
Probably not.
You can't keep them. It's like the poor baseball or sports franchises. They can't keep their good players that they've developed. So you're much better off trying to create some kind of hour-long, half-hour TV, but not something shorter than that. You want to do it properly. You want to learn how to write them properly. And I think it's more easy to be forgiven. So, and this is where YouTube fits in, is that I just wish they had a separate independent producers division where they just hive that off. They don't have to do much in terms of promoting it. But as I mentioned to you, they do need to develop an Entertainment Tonight like YouTube show where
I want to talk to you specifically about that.
So every single
down the line.
day they need to talk up the shows that appear on their independent channel, not their stupid red channel that they screwed up.
So I would say that yes, the expense, I completely agree, is a huge obstacle toward getting anything independent going. I coupled that with the idea that the consumers are generally not, it's an extremely expensive thing to do, and consumers are generally not primed to pay a lot of money for it. Because you can pay $9.99 or whatever it is right now for Netflix, and you can have thousands of shows, same with Disney Plus or Apple or, Hulu, whatever. You can pay a very nominal amount and you can have access to a tremendous amount of stuff. And so when an independent company says, hey, we're going to give you this one show or this one movie or whatever it is that they're doing, and I'm asking for 25 or 30 bucks, that's different. I mean, the consumers are not prepared for that.
No, but YouTube has now added those little, the little packages, those little things that they can, people will give you a spiff, right?
Well, we got super chats and now the super thanks.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that you work that really, really hard. I'm shocked at how many people pay me for my, during in my comments now. Like I'm really embarrassed and thankful at the same time. I always send them a note saying, thanks, I'm going to put this in my G-string right now. And yeah, so I mean, I try to respond to the first 100 people.
So
anyway, I think YouTube is well positioned. I just don't think anyone's pitched them the idea of somewhat hands-off independent section on YouTube. But like shorts, now they're showing all these shorts have another section called independence.
Yeah. Okay, so we can talk about YouTube specifically, because you had talked about how do you crack the YouTube code. And one of the things that I had thought about was that, what if there's actually not a YouTube code to crack? That it can't be done. Because I was thinking about, like, when I was doing Kickstarter with Infinite Black and things like that, that you, in a certain sense, somebody could say that's cracking Kickstarter. Okay, because we were very successful at it. We produced over like 325 products, and we did. But on the other hand, it wasn't just Kickstarter that we had. Like, we probably had about a dozen different systems, whether that is Facebook, whether that is Twitter, whether that was like 3 different intermediate pre-order systems that you had to go through even after Kickstarter. So even though the front end, when you actually went there, was a Kickstarter page, it wasn't exactly cracking Kickstarter. We had to put together an enormous number of systems that weren't necessarily compatible and required, a tremendous amount of manual work on our end to get all of these things together in order to make, that Kickstarter happen.
But that's just marketing 101. You have to fulfill all the channel opportunities. You just can't go, oh, Kickstarter, if I get that, then I'm going to be fine. No,
right. Well, marketing is one side of it. It's definitely one side of it, because you put up a Kickstarter page and then you say,
and you sit back and
then you sit back, and that is not a right thing. And that's why when I'm looking at YouTube, hey, let me make some YouTube videos, and then I'll just sit back and I'll wait for people to show up and watch my YouTube videos. Because I have experience on Kickstarter, I know that, like, if I want anything to happen on Kickstarter, I got to drive traffic to Kickstarter.
Right.
And so likewise, if I make a video on YouTube, then I'm gonna have to drive traffic to that video somehow and get.
But you're driving everyone to a massive floating crap table, and YouTube does not segment. Well, even though, even though they have these different categories, they don't show the categories the way they do on Google TV. there's no interface that says, I don't think, that says, oh, show me everything that people have clicked on comedy. You can do a search for people who have clicked comedy as their category, or entertainment or science, but they haven't organized the YouTube interface that will let people click on science and then see, Sabina Hassenfelder and, all these other science channels. I don't know why they haven't done that. It's kind of silly. They already have the interface with their Google TV. So, why wouldn't they do that with YouTube? So, but my point is having an independence channel where at least, these are people there are trying to put minimum, 24-minute, 50-minute things on there. And that's the barrier to entry. You can't put 10-minute webisodes up there. That's not what that's not what you're going to get. Anyway.
Well, right. Yes. The marketing is what I was going to say. The marketing is one side, but then also on Kickstarter, even once you have people pledge, it's actually ridiculous that you may not actually know what items those people want. And you have to send them through a third-party system in order to figure out what they are actually pledging for.
What do you mean?
For instance, the one of my main products was these.
I've kickstarted.
Okay, so for instance, this has magic cards in it. That has dice in it. For instance, we used to do these with Infinite Black. We used to do these Elder Dice, and this is it's a Lovecraftian tome of and it's got dice in it for Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. And in the later campaigns, we'd put 10 dice on there. So 10 different sets of dice. But if somebody pledges for 3 sets of dice, we wouldn't know what sets they wanted, because
unless each one was a different SKU.
But Kickstarter is not built around SKUs.
Okay,
you can't load SKUs into right. Indiegogo is built around SKUs.
Correct.
Right. But if you're on Kickstarter, then you are not built around SKUs, and you have to send people to an independent pledge manager. BackerKit made a tremendous amount of money by saying, "I'll be your pledge manager."
I see.
So did GameFound. There were a bunch of different companies, because the back end of Kickstarter was just so completely inadequate for anyone who was actually trying to run a business of any scale, that these third-party companies sprang up to be your pledge managers, to handle everything that you actually needed.
You know what? I didn't experience that, because thankfully all my Kickstarters failed, but all my Indiegogos succeeded.
Yeah. Well, but that's a ridiculous thing, that you can run a Kickstarter and bring in $800,000 and have 10,000 people show up and not actually know what products they want, and then have to go to a completely third party and set that up. Did they fix it? No, they're still way behind. And so that's why these other companies are.
That is nuts.
So what's happened is that these other companies that sprang up as pledge managers have now opened up a front end as the actual crowdfunding platform, which makes sense, because they're like, we have all the back end infrastructure that you need.
Right. So screw Kickstarter.
So screw your front end Kickstarter, come here to this. So that's diversifying crowdfunding platforms. But so we use, all of the marketing channels like you were talking about. Then you go to Kickstarter, then you go to back end pledge managers. Then there was an independent pre-order system. We use Celery, because you couldn't pre-order through the
I would fire. If I was the board on Kickstarter, I'd fire the management.
I know. Well, but you have to remember, but yeah, I know they absolutely should. But remember, they're like the public benefit corporation who is, that is not, all of their marketing is not promoting necessarily business kinds of things. They're promoting, well, historically they promote weird stuff.
I know that. I know.
So that's what they promoted. Not that anybody's going to the Kickstarter front page to find out what to back, but if you go, that's why you can't say, I'm gonna put up this Kickstarter page. And then
Kickstarter traditionally had inventions and electronics, and there would be no need for multiple levels of inducements. You would just get the thing.
Yeah.
So you made this aluminum extruded thing that for your camera that will do something with your something, and you just pitched to be one of the people to get it. That was it. And you got nothing else but that thing. There was no other, would this get the special signed version?
or stretch goals. If we hit the stretch goal, we're going to be doing this.
There was none of that at the very beginning.
Yeah, in the very beginning. And so, yeah, what crowdfunding was outgrew that. But my point is that you're having to run multiple systems.
Yes.
And even with me, what I'm thinking of and what I had always thought of when I was like, okay, I'm going to make some independent shows is that, well, I'm not going to be able to make money off of the shows themselves, that I'm going to have to produce products that people who love the shows are willing to buy. And I just happen to have the experience coming out of tabletop games with manufacturing and stuff, but that is not anything I would recommend to most people. We try to talk straight here, about what it takes to create stuff. And, there are a lot of friends of mine who want to do independent films or they're doing, things like that. And they're like, well, what are you trying to do, Heath? And I will try to explain, well, I'm making these stuffed animals. I got action figure prototypes going on. I got board games. But, if you're somebody who's like, I want to be making films, I want to make TV, I want to be behind the camera, this is not anything you should be doing.
Oh, no. There's some good Tubi experts out there.
Welcome to the
Shadows. My She-Hulk review.
I haven't watched that one yet. I just saw it came up, but I haven't actually seen it yet.
What? I am leaving. No.
I saw it about 30 minutes before I came on here.
No, it's not a problem.
So my point was that to do it, there are multiple systems. Nobody has this. Okay, hey, you're a creative. You want to create shows. Here's the system you need to plug into. We have you from A to Z in an independent sense. Here is what you do. Because, man, you got to cobble it together yourself. And
so if YouTube offered a classic option, which is in TV, in the late night space, I could sell a strip, which is a bunch of shows, and the local station would take the ad revenue of, they would put in, their car dealer, they have their own salespeople. Mm-hmm. And let's say there were 12 total ad slots. I would keep 8 of them. He would get 4, she or whatever would get 4. And then I would then go out and sell those slots and I would make that money. Mm-hmm. So if YouTube said, we're going to, depending on, let's say, the number of commercials that you choose to add, and you've set them up more like a TV. So you've got we got a sitcom, 22 minutes, and every 10 minutes, there's going to be the traditional sitcom break, which is the way you should be writing it anyway, no matter what. And YouTube will take X number of those ad breaks, and then the producer of the show will get their ad breaks, and they are responsible for selling those. They get the revenue for them. So if YouTube gave me the opportunity to sell 4 of those slots on my own show, and I'd produce the ads, and I'd put it into a special system on YouTube that allows me to insert those ads, and YouTube does their own little AdSense ad thingy, whatever they want, then that would be brilliant. So
that does sound good.
I'm trying to keep, I don't want YouTube to turn it into another Red, and I want their life to be easy, and I don't want them to do anything more. But I want them to give us independent developers more options. And if I have a series on YouTube and I can show them the ratings, which is absolutely brilliant, and I can sell these ad spaces for X amount of dollars. And if it's on paid YouTube, I don't know what you would do. I can't think that far. But that's a much better way than, not only is it a better way than trying to raise money at Kickstarter or whatever, but there's already systems out there for it. People understand it in the broadcast business. It is an understood method. I don't have to convince people how it works.
Well, the understood method is also extremely important, because I sent you, while you were on vacation, a link because I saw some YouTube videos that were coming out. They were talking about how the algorithm is changing. And of course, I'm not big enough to have actually like experienced that, for me, but I was watching these other larger YouTubers say that, who were trying to, and so I was trying to understand what they were doing. And I thought they laid out, okay, the algorithm shifts. If you're actually trying to run a company and you're trying to run a business and they got employees and there's stuff like that, that they have to actually understand how their revenue is coming in.
Right.
And when all of a sudden it changes behind the screen and you get just an email that says, hey, we're doing more shorts now, or something like that, that's not enough. All of a sudden they're tanking, because I didn't understand how like sponsorships worked. With sponsorships, like, but if you're trying to say like, okay, you give me so much money and I will get you so many views, like, and that's the transaction that's going to occur. And then you like, no, based on my experience, I need to put your ad, your sponsorship in this video, and then all of a sudden it changes and that one just tanks. Like, they have to know something and understand something about that revenue stream. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
Well, and my solution fixes that.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's real time. The inserting the sponsorship is bullshit. It's garbage. I want access to the same commercial spot insertion tool that Google provides us to, once you have more than an 8-minute show, you can put N number of commercial slots in, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I want access to that for my sold ads.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything that we're doing seems very hacky. It's always been very, very hacky. And YouTube has been behind in that, like, the existence of Patreon, and I may not have the timeline exactly right, but, sort of like the backer kits and the pledge manager showed up for Kickstarter. It seems like that's how like Patreon shows up for YouTube. It's like, hey, wait a minute. These YouTubers need some way that they can actually get money. And YouTube, was not there. Now, later they add stuff in later, but all of that developed outside of YouTube first. And so, it's all hacked together.
Yeah. And Shorts now allows you to link to your longer form piece, that's brilliant. Most
good.
of the,
I haven't tried that yet, but I'm going to.
I haven't either, but it looks great. That makes sense also for this independent production platform. I would love to beg YouTube. I haven't approached them, but I'm going to do a video on it. What was the other thing? Gall darn it. It's okay. You go on.
Well, okay. I was going to say, I've got a couple of things I need to play. And then do you have just like, we're supposed to go for about 60 minutes. Do you have a few more minutes? Because I got 2 more topics that I really want to address with you.
Okay. Did I talk too much?
No. I think it's been great. I want to talk to you about Star Trek Continues, and then I want to specifically talk to you about the late night or Entertainment Tonight. I've got questions to ask you about.
Sure.
Both of those. Okay. So, but first, before we go forward with those things, on this channel, my web show is The Cultists. It's our Lovecraftian comedy about a modern day Cthulhu cultists who are just trying to worship the elder gods in a world full of
ill
people who
people.
don't understand. Yes, season 1 is on the channel right now. Season 2 I'm going to bring out, and I'm going to play for you the trailer for season 2, which is about the specific Dungeons and Dragons side of them. So I'm going to play that now.
I attack the darkness. 40-10 psychic damage.
The cultist.
My parents are out of the house today. I invited the guys over for a little D&D.
So do I get to cast spells?
Yes, you're a wizard.
I am?
That's my spot!
Oh, yeah? Well, why don't you come over here and do something about it?
So I'm gonna take Steve out.
How are you gonna do that?
I'm gonna cast Power Word Kill. Kill, kill, kill! What happened?
First they start playing Monopoly, and then they move on to Dungeons and Dragons. The next thing you know, they're worshiping demons and drowning themselves in lakes.
Can't even cast a practice spell, right?
I think you're just not high enough level to cast Power Word Kill.
I will not stop until Steve is destroyed. Edith, target, conditioner, saving throw.
So that's our season 2 trailer. So we're going to be bringing that out. Now, the way we're funding it, the story will only go for 3 seasons. We're hoping to be able to create a 3rd season for this. So season 3, we have created a board game based on the cultists. It's called Ritual. We're going to bring Ritual out on the crowdfunding site called GameFound. And you can sign up to be a play tester for this game. One of the links is down below. We've had over 600 people sign up to play test this game already. So we're going to be play testing it. We'll be doing more stuff with it. And then probably in about 2 months, we're going to be hitting this really hard. So here is the game that's coming out. Ready for a Cthulhu cultist party game of spellcasting and betrayal? Welcome to Ritual.
This is just our gaming group.
Indeed, but your gaming group is all you need to delve into the madness-inducing rituals necessary to summon Cthulhu. Click the link below to visit the GameFound page, follow the project, and learn more.
Dude, this is hardcore.
Ritual is a game of incantation, social deduction, and dreadful fun. To win, your band of loyal cultists must successfully complete 5 magical rituals. But watch out. Your cult has been secretly infiltrated by the sinister agents of the Yellow King.
You think the cult of the Yellow King is here?
If they can foul up 3 of your rights, then they win.
You've not been further compromised by the Yellow King, have you?
Check out the GameFound page for more about the game and for a brief rundown on how to play. GameFound is a great new platform for crowdfunding board games, and we are proud to make it Ritual's home base. When you follow the game on GameFound, you can get updates about the game's development before the project goes live. And you'll get a free Rob, High Priest of Dagon miniature in battle pose if you decide to back the game when the campaign goes live. There is even an opportunity to get an advanced copy of the rules and participate in the playtest for rules review. We'd like everyone who's a fan of the cultists to be involved.
Any cult leader would be proud to have you as their disciple.
So if you're a fan of Elder Gods and crazy fun, come and join us for Ritual. Click the link below to follow the game on GameFound today. All right, so that's how we're trying to do this. So we've got the show, we've got the board game, and please subscribe to the channel. That's where all this is going to be coming out. Arm sent us a sticker.
Hello, Arm.
Yes, she was on General Geekdom, our Sunday show, last week. She's fantastic.
Oh, she is. She's just wonderful.
And LR Studio says, okay, I need to get a rubber fish. Yes, everybody needs a rubber fish. And actually, I'm having the rubber fish that Rob wears sculpted, so that will actually be part of the GameFound prizes or rewards on game.
You need to dig up Monty Python's fish dance.
Oh, okay.
look up Monty Python's fish dance.
Okay.
Fish slapping dance. Sorry,
Monty
fish
Python
slapping dance. Wonderful bit.
Okay. So let's talk about 2 topics here, because you interviewed Vic Mignogna about Star Trek Continues.
Yes.
And I thought that was a fantastically interesting interview. I ate it up and I did a response for that.
Yeah, you broke it down.
I thought it was really interesting. But one of the things that he didn't have information on was how the campaign actually progressed. And I've been meaning to do a video on the analytical breakdown of those Kickstarter campaigns, but I haven't done it yet. You want to look at those numbers with me for just a few minutes, and we'll see what we can figure out. Okay, so let me
bring them up and see them numbers.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to find that. Oh, okay. I found it. Okay. So are you familiar with KickTrack?
I have no idea what it is.
Okay. So here is KickTrack. This is how we can kind of X-ray the Star Trek Continues project. So KickTrack is a third-party website that downloads a bunch of data from Kickstarter and then gives you the data from what actually happened on that campaign.
Cool.
So this is a really interesting tool for anybody who is trying to run Kickstarter campaigns. It doesn't work for other crowdfunding sites because it's hooked into the Kickstarter API. But there's clearly a lot of data there anyway for Kickstarter and to see how these things work. So, for instance, I was looking at the KickTrack for this is their first Star Trek Continues web series, and so you can see here they are showing the way. Like this is the total amount of money that was raised per day. you know,
Right.
all the way across the campaign. So they were
Nice.
trying to raise $100,000,
Gotcha.
but it took them a long time. They started very slow, right? And they started to build, 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 and they finally crossed it. And then they were slow, and everybody gets this uptick here at the end because things are ending. If we go over here to the daily data, we can actually break down and see how much money they made per day. So here's like on the first day, they only brought in $1,434. Then they brought in $4,698, and then they had a relatively large third day, and then they're bouncing around, and then it's not until like 2/3 of the way through the campaign that they actually start getting some donations, you know, that are actually driving them forward here. And also, you can see that this is the number of backers that are coming in. So, you know, the number of backers or with the amount of money.
matches up
Yeah,
nicely.
it's not that they had one person come in and give them $25,000.
Right.
They did bring in more, and then the number of comments that are also on their channel. So, you know, I interviewed Jamie Stegmaier on the channel, who is in the tabletop gaming space, and he's one of the extreme success stories of crowdfunding. He's now running a $25 million a year tabletop gaming company based on, and he hasn't crowdfunded in years. He launched the company through crowdfunding, but then moved on to more traditional ways. And, you know, this to me, I'll tell you how it's connected in a second, but this to me looks like a very kind of ad hoc spread for the way that they brought in the money for this. If we go over to their next campaign, so this is the 2015 Kickstarter 2.0, and we take a look at the Kickstarter data here. This is our pledges per day. And it looks like we have a much more traditional kind of Kickstarter curve here, because like on their second one, they brought in $38,000, almost $39,000 on the first day. So all of their people were prepped. They had their people prepped for their second campaign. They didn't have anybody prepped for their first campaign. If I go over to, and Jamie had told me on his that, you know, I asked him, could he do it again? Could he do what he had done again? And he said no, which is both discouraging from a creator's perspective, that, you know, he's created this extremely successful company, but he's like saying that the state of crowdfunding today and things like that would not allow him to do it again. If you look at his final Kickstarter campaign, which was Scythe right here. Now he's moved on to other more traditional means of publishing now. But if you take a look at his daily data, wait, what is going on here?
It's the Borg.
Yep, it's not
Wrong. Is it the wrong funding?
Let's see if this one has more. Okay, here's the data. Okay, now see here, we've got this U shape, which is much more like what their second Kickstarter had. You know, he brought in 579,000 on the very first day. You know, his people were ready. And then there's a drop off on the second day, and then the third day. And then in the middle of the campaign, you're just plugging along until you get to the end of the campaign when you've got everybody who is, you know, waiting to the last minute. Oh, I got to get in. So this U shape is indicative of kind of a mature crowdfunding campaign. So that kind of tells me that when he ran the first one, I mean, this was a long time ago too.
Yep.
And it was in the wild west of crowdfunding. And, you know, you might be able to start a campaign basically with no one. I mean, he did basically start it with no one. Only 47 people showed up on his first day. But then he's like, but then people must have, oh, it's Star Trek, something. And, you know, back then crowdfunding was new. And, you know, people started coming in. And so we've got this weird shape, you know, this very ad hoc shape on our first Kickstarter campaign. And so that is also the kind of thing that makes me skeptical that, well, can you do it again? Now, he might be able to because he has the name recognition. You know, if you're gonna do this with Star Wars, you're gonna do it with Vic. I mean, excuse me, you're gonna do it with Star Trek, and you're gonna do it with Vic.
Yep.
Then I bet you can get people to show up. But on the other hand, if I'm talking to other people who are not doing something with Star Trek and are not Vic Mignogna, then I'd say, okay, even he had this very uneven. I mean, anything could have happened on this first Kickstarter. It seems like there's no guarantee. It seems like they have a you know, not exactly a perfect U shape, but a much more, you know, a much closer to U shape on the second Kickstarter. So, I mean, I don't know what that tells me is that you know, this was the Wild West when they came out, and it did work for them. But they've got a lot of things working with his name recognition, and they've got a whole lot working with them with Star Trek, and they had a lot working with them saying that this was a new kind of thing. Hey, Kickstarter.
Well, the first series was self-financed. This was the second one. So he had something to show people. That blip.
Well, didn't he just have the first episode or something like that, or 2 episodes? I don't think he had the
what.
first... Well, he did have something out there. Yes, he did. Yeah, he had something out there. Yes,
it's something out there, and that blip could be a fan fest or something. You know, something that allowed him to market it directly to a larger group of people. That almost looks like a trade show blip.
Exactly. What I would do if I were going into this in more detail, not on this stream, but I would start to look at all the comments on those days and also his updates. And so if he says something like, hey, we were just covered by X, Y, and Z. And then people, you know, people in the comments are saying, hey, I just saw you on whatever trade show and I'm here.
Right.
So
then you would know.
Right. But if, you know, if that hadn't happened, this Kickstarter would have been a very different story. You know, because whatever happened, it really drove this Kickstarter right in here. You know, and that's what made it.
And not everybody has a property like Star Trek, as you said, to piggyback on.
Right. Yeah. And I know you guys talked about that on the show, and you're like, what, you know, do you recommend starting with something like Star Trek and doing a fan film in order to build a fan base? It's a potential strategy, but, you know, it's also not necessarily a given one, because you can definitely bring out all the Star Trek people. But then if you say, hey, I got this Western next, there's no guarantee they're going to follow you for the next thing.
Well, the problem is that most people don't understand that it's not about asking people to support you. It's to put enough pieces together to challenge people to turn you down. So the kinds of things when you're in Hollywood, the biggest mistake people, well, I mean, this is why the big agencies package things. So you go in as a struggling scriptwriter and you're like shaking and you're going, hey, here's my idea. Whereas a production company goes in, I've got De Niro as the lead actor. I've got Tom Hanks as his partner. This script was written by Joe Esterhazy. I have Sigourney Weaver is the actress. It's being directed by John Verhoeven. Okay. Turn me down, fucker.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that. I like that philosophy.
So that's the philosophy you have to have with everything that you're doing. You don't go into Kickstarter or anything like that hoping for success. It's the absolute, like, what are you? And so what you're doing is correct in the sense that, okay, I got Kickstarter. Who else can I get on board to pitch it for me? What's, you know, the best person? What other, you know, how am I going to drive people to Kickstarter? And so you are front loading it, as you called it, to the best of your ability. If you hope to convince people by the mid cycle of Kickstarter to, you know, get people to come on board, you're lost.
You absolutely are.
Terrible strategy.
That's why I tell people, hope marketing. If you're hope marketing does not work.
No.
You cannot build your company around hope marketing. That's not something that that
Yeah.
happens.
So not only do you need all the assets and things like that to begin with. So yeah, you have to develop the attitude of not begging for success, but challenging people to turn you down.
Yeah. But my point was, if I were looking at that, I would say that that was a different time. Like when he
Yeah.
was running his
I
first
don't know what it's
Kickstarter, it
like
was a different
now.
time. I wouldn't try. I wouldn't count on saying I can replicate that again. Even if I were him. Now he has tremendous advantages, like I said, with his name recognition and stuff like that. But there's still things I would talk about. But if you're not him, because I'll put it another way. You know, one of the things I've been doing is documenting all of the things that I have done through the Business for Creatives channel, because I want people to be able to not reinvent the wheel. If I go through this, people can follow me, they can see what I'm doing and stuff like that. And I think that's very important. But the flip side of that is, if you go back to my first Kickstarter campaign, that was back in the wild, wild west. And so if you went, don't look at where I am now, not that I'm anywhere big, but if somebody's looking at where I am now and the kinds of things that I have done, don't look at that. Go and look at the original Kickstarter campaign I did. I mean, that was my brother and I hacking it together in his kitchen. You know, I mean, but on the other hand, if you did that again today, it would not work.
No.
So that's a double-edged sword. Here's the path that I took, but on the other hand, if you do exactly what I did, it's also not going to work for you.
Things change.
Yeah. We got some comments here, and then we'll go to our last topic. Stunt Brats says, hi, Heath. One of our top fans, probably seen Stunt Brats on a bunch of different channels, and says, hello, Mr. Chato.
Hello.
LR Studio says, Heath, at one time you promoted a tabletop terrain system. By the time I looked it up, the Kickstarter no longer existed. I apologize for thinking of someone else. No, that's me. That's TerraTiles. And that's the terrain system that my brother and I developed for tabletop games. And I am relaunching that on GameFound on Tuesday. So actually, that's the first project that I'm doing right now. There's a whole playlist about TerraTiles and that terrain system on this channel. That is coming out on GameFound on Tuesday. So TerraTiles first, that terrain system first, and then that's why I said that we're going to hit Ritual and the release of the Cultist Season 2 hard in about a month and a half, 2 months, something like that, because we're going through the launch of the terrain system for Dungeons & Dragons, war games, skirmish games, whatever you need, first. Then we will go to that. I got a bunch of different products that have been developed. I got prototypes and stuff all behind me, and I feel like I've been treading water for about 6 or 8 months for a whole bunch of different reasons. I'm sure you know, Paul, how difficult it can be. So I got, like, I'm stacked up with projects to launch. So TerraTiles first. I'm really excited about that. That's gonna be a great system. And then we'll move on to Ritual and the release of the Cultist Season 2. And then after that, we're gonna have the release of turning this way, the plush toys for the Tales of Rabavania, our Rabbit Knights. And the book Good Night Sword, which is my first children's book that we put out. So there's a lot of stuff coming. So please subscribe. Check this out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. I'm really excited to get out. Midnight's Edge After Dark is here. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It says, I love it when Paul talks dirty.
Rankle rotary motor.
Stunt Brat also says, Paul, so true when you're talking about the marketing aspects of things. Hey, Tom.
Oh, Tom. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome to hear. Okay, excellent. Okay, then let's do one final topic if you have time, because I do want to talk to you about the idea of your entertainment tonight.
Yes.
Because one of the things I had been thinking of when you had been talking about your stuff and the whole system here is that, okay, if you're going to be an independent producer means doing everything.
Yep.
Everything. And tabletop gaming developed this system that sort of organically or whatever, and we had this. Now that doesn't mean that it's easy and you still have to do everything yourself. But, as far as reviewers and people who talk about games and things like that, the independent side, there are a lot of people on YouTube who do that and things like that. But when you were talking about your independent tonight, do you know independent?
I like independent tonight. I like that.
Independent tonight. The I thought about, do you know outside of YouTube doing it itself, who I thought about was Film Threat. Do you know Film
Chris?
Threat? Yeah, Chris Gore and Film Threat. When you said that, I instantly over here said that was what Film Threat was supposed to be. Film Threat was supposed to be our independent entertainment tonight.
Is that what Chris said?
No, it's what I said.
Oh,
It's what when you said that we need on your YouTube channel, that we need that. Where is that? Of course, you were talking about YouTube creating it, but I went, Chris Gore and Film Threat was that. So I really would like, I'm a fan of them, so I follow them.
oh yeah.
But I was following Film Threat for about a year now and stuff like that, and their YouTube and stuff like that. And of course, they were putting out independent trailers, and they did put out a trailer for The Cultists, and they did post about The Cultists and reviews on their channel. So I really appreciate on their website. I really appreciate that, and I've talked to Chris Gore. But I've noticed since about maybe February or something like that they have turned
Into a review channel.
They talk about Star Wars. They talk about Marvel. And I can't blame them, because obviously, like, okay, we're talking about people's independent films here, and we're going nowhere, And so if we talk about Star Wars, because Chris Gore has his video about Star Wars that's got 160 million views, or whatever it is, something ridiculous like that. So obviously, people want to hear Chris Gore talk about Star Wars. So it doesn't surprise me that eventually, after talking about everybody's independent films for months or years or however long it's been, that they eventually say, you know what, we should just talk about Star Wars. And then they've been growing since then. I've been watching. What do we think about that? Because that's a systematic problem too.
The issue that I have, and I'm not saying it's guaranteed, is that while I want YouTube to just provide the tools, they need to provide the blessing. It has to be a YouTube blessed independent Tonight Show. It can't be just some person they've hired, or then it becomes, what is it, G47, that horrible game channel that.
Oh yeah, that was a whole bunch of drama, right?
Yeah, a whole bunch of drama. Was it G something or G4?
G4, yeah, G4, yeah.
G4, yeah. And it looked slick, but even then it wasn't slick enough. The sets kind of looked slick, but the people on it still look like hosers. It's got to be up there with like an Entertainment Tonight, very slick show and interviews and someone who really knows how to do that level show that will then, I guess, transfer that excitement over to the independent production. That's the one thing that YouTube must support. That's the one piece of the puzzle. They've got to bless this show and give it their full blessing.
I don't know personally that it has to be the production value, because obviously people on YouTube are very used to watching us like the StreamYard right here.
Right.
But if
it can't be like us, it can't be. Even if the people made fun of it, even if they became very meta about it, but people are affected by style, even if they go, oh no, YouTube is kind of their own kind of thing and we're kind of grooving on this stuff or whatever. I used to drive a Mercedes, and I can't believe the number of people who go, hey Paul, that's a nice Mercedes. Well, okay. The car makes the person. People are affected by it. And yeah, you know what, at the very beginning, people might poo-poo it and go, oh, that's way too slick. But then, you know what, over time, they'll, an independent producer that's put together some movie, like what's the one which was the shaky cam movie that took off?
Oh, Blair Witch.
Blair Witch. So if I did that for, $10 and a box of cigars, and I had that promoted on a show where the presenters were professional and weren't umming and awing and knew how to really pitch the show, I would be thrilled. I wouldn't be mad that it doesn't look like it's from someone's basement.
Well, that is a good point as well, that, you and I and a lot of the people that we talk to are definitely in the trenches of YouTube. So this is the kind of stuff that we are
out of that old era. I know it works.
That if you actually wanted to promote it more mainstream, which you probably would have to do, in order to get, I don't really like the term normie, but let's use the term normie. If you want normies to come and watch the shows that are on YouTube, maybe those are not the people who are watching productions like this, that you would need more. So I could see
Right.
that.
And it would become, and it would then provide. So if the YouTube Entertainment Tonight channel, and I'm just riffing on this, made a product valuable, then the YouTube channels like Chris Gore that wasn't making any money on the independent channels will then jump at the chance for some AdSense cash because XYZ movie has been promoted, is now getting hot.
And now they can talk about it.
Now they can talk about it, and they can afford to talk about it because they're not the ones breaking it.
Right.
They should.
They can't afford to talk about the independent films. Realistically,
correct.
They can't afford
and so so my plan is even more genius than I anticipated.
All right.
Because now the all the people who want to cash in on AdSense will be all over the productions promoted by Independent Tonight. Because now people are interested. There's some interest now building. See, so
Okay.
This all makes sense. Wow.
I think there is a model here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into this in any detail, but when I was sketching out stuff, when I was first thinking about, okay, I'm going to start this new company that's going to be doing these shows, things like this.
That's right.
Of course, I sketched things out with doing products and things like that. And I think there is also a model there, but it's going to take some effort to do because you've got to put a lot of capital behind creating a bunch of stuff before.
And one of the things that you know about YouTube is that you want to be able to catch the interest wave. So if YouTube has a show that creates the interest wave, and then the parasites, I'm so cynical. But then I don't mind. I mean, it's one of the things that you learn about YouTube is, do I do my She-Hulk review today? I went, screw it. I'm catching the algorithm wave. Just gonna do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah. But I put some work into it. I mean, I didn't just extemporize for a half an hour about something. I mean, to me, I've got standards, and I wrote it the way I write things to within an inch of its life, and tried to create something that didn't insult people's intelligence. So, but do it in any way that you want. So if YouTube creates value, and then that wonderful parasitic universe that it has created then gloms onto a product and amplifies it, that works great, and it fits the model that YouTube has. It doesn't fight it. So, you're my rubber ducky, right? And you know what a rubber ducky is?
I know, but not in this context.
No, so it's a programmer. It's a programmerism. All the game programmers out there know what I'm talking about. Is that programmers live very solitary lives. One, because programming, sometimes you need to tell everyone to shut up and you have to be on your own to think things through, but you need to talk to someone. And you'll find on programmers' desks a rubber ducky, and they'll talk to them. And they'll talk through their code.
I'm very happy to be that.
Yeah. So I used to be the rubber ducky for our chief programmer. We would go someplace and he would be stuck on a huge network firewall problem. And we'd just sit in the hallway of the NOC, and he would just talk to me, and I'd just shut up, and he'd just chat to me for half an hour. And then he'd go, I figured it out. And he'd go in and fix it.
I'm absolutely happy to play that role.
So there, I mean, so now, we've now created another piece to it, that this supports the natural aspect of YouTube, where this allows the people who want to talk about independent productions to make money off of that.
To actually do it.
Yeah. If YouTube greases the skid. So there we go. YouTube. I'm going to make that. So thank you. Thank you very much, Rubber Ducky.
Well, I see, Stunt Brat says my son has been a Star Wars geek since the age of 4. He got a Mandalorian tattoo on his wrist the second he turned 18. He's 28 now. Whoa. And then, yes, independent producers work their butts off. And yes, we do.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, There you go.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I think that we did in fact extend the conversation on this topic because it's one that I think is very important and that we need to have more of.
Yeah, and we've advanced it too.
Yeah, advance this discussion and advance the ideas. I think so. The link to your YouTube channel and also your website are down below.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to tell everybody what you're doing, where the best place is to find you? I mean, obviously, it's the Call Me Chato YouTube channel, probably. But tell everybody where they want you want people to go to be in touch with you.
Yeah, the channel's fine. I play around on Twitter a lot. I'm there as Paul Chato on Twitter. That's a wacky place.
It is.
Twitter.
I stopped checking Twitter much.
I just get into. I've decided not get fights with on much.
It's not worth it.
But yeah, no, my channel, Call Me Chato, that's really blown up, and I've lots of learnings there too. So, and it's a pleasure to be on your channel and supporting what you're doing.
It has been incredible. And if you are new here and you're finding me for the first time, this YouTube channel, Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy, is my primary social media and outlet. Please subscribe and like to this channel. I've got several different shows here. This is Table Talk, the one-on-one show. There's a playlist where you can go through all the Table Talk shows. I've been talking to people like Cameron Pasha. We've been talking to independent tabletop game creators, Lou Anders, Brian Collin, all of that on the channel. General Geekdom is the Sunday show, which is a panel show where we basically talk about creative and business sides of doing stuff as well. But it's the panel show. We've been talking about masculinity and femininity in films. We've been talking about our show on Sunday is going to be about myths and their retelling in TV and film and how important that is. So I'm pulling together the panel for that this Sunday. We would love to have everybody there for that. And of course, The Cultists is also on the channel. So go down, just scroll down on the homepage. You'll find the playlist for season 1, and we bring out season 2 in about 2 months. Thank you, Paul. And thank you to everyone who has been here watching.
My only panel is the basement vinyl mahogany veneer one.
Thank you, Stunt Brad. All right. I'm going to close this out. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.